Welcome back. I'm Damian White. This is my associate Todd Graff, and this is the Gold Spot. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it. This week, we've actually had quite a bit of talk about the United States agreement with Saudi Arabia and what they call the petrodollar, using our US dollars to purchase oil. It's been a kind of a hot topic over the last week, maybe couple of weeks. Todd, could you give us maybe a little bit of background, a little bit of history of what that agreement is and what it's been used for over the last maybe 5 or even 6 decades?
Yeah, definitely, Damien. So in the early 1970s, the U.S. was having stagflation, and there was a lot of countries that were trying to move away from the U.S. dollar. They wanted to turn their U.S. dollars back into gold. And the U.S. government had an idea to come up with an agreement with Saudi Arabia where all countries that Saudi Arabia was dealing in oil with would need to use U.S. dollars in order to buy that and trade in that oil. So it was a good situation for us, for the U.S., because we had worldwide demand for our currency, and that's what made the U.S. dollar the reserve currency for the last 50 years. This agreement took place in 1974, and it was only supposed to be temporary. That's what a lot of people forget. They were set up so that every 5 years it would have to be renewed, basically, or it would be automatically renewed if nobody objected to it. So this went on for decades, for 50 years, and everybody in this country, without realizing it, has benefited from this arrangement because it props up our currency. It gives our currency value and makes it a good store of value. This is the biggest news with the world's monetary policy in the last 50 years. And a lot of people are wondering, how is this going to affect me? I haven't noticed any big changes since Sunday, but going forward, how will this affect me? And I know, Damien, you have a lot of information about that.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit uncertain right now, and no one really knows what the grand implications are, but it's pretty evident to look forward and see that it will start causing some drastic changes. And if people remember, probably at the middle of last year, there was the BRICS conference, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the summit was in South Africa. But what was interesting about that time is that they actually let in a couple of countries into their group, and one of them being Saudi Arabia, and one of them being Iran. And Saudi Arabia entering into that agreement became kind of a problematic situation because they're attempting to use a different currency. They want to start what they call de-dollarizing, moving away from the US dollar. What it basically does is allowing all the other countries around the world to operate and trade, like Todd was talking about, in other currencies, their own local currencies. So I don't feel like there's going to be like a dramatic shift that's going to happen immediately, but what it's doing is allowing these countries to stop using the US dollar, operating and trading in their own currencies, and that does lessen the stranglehold that the US dollar has on the world. So as the world is de-dollarizing, and we've been seeing this over a couple of years where these BRICS nations and other countries have stopped using the dollar because they're not happy with US policy and the way that US government is operating. Regardless of all of it, what you're going to see is you're going to see less usage of the dollar, and then the dollar becoming less useful, less used in the oil markets. It's going to cause more inflation, and it's going to start weakening the strength of the US dollar. And thereby, we've been getting a lot of feedback from clients, a lot of concerns from clients. And I think that it's very important that people start really fortifying their own personal balance sheets with hard assets. Gold is the original one, the original money. It's been money for 5,000 years. I think everyone needs to start accumulating gold or other hard assets. I mean, nobody on the planet currently owns enough hard assets, whether it's real estate or precious metals, to protect the money that they've made, their savings, and probably the most important element would be their purchasing power as prices continue to rise and the value of our currencies drop. We have a few very good reports. Petrodollar is a whole series of them. Petrodollar 1, 2, and 3 kind of explains and goes into this a little more in depth. So I would encourage everybody to reach out to us, If you have questions about gold and silver, we're always here to help. And to read that information, you get a better grasp on how that's going to influence the world, the purchasing power, the dollar, and your savings going forward. See you next time.
If you enjoyed today's Gold Spot, like or subscribe to both our YouTube or our Rumble channels. Also, comment below if you have any questions or if you want to hear us talk about something specific in a future video.